Hello, this is Feng Lu, a faculty member of Peking University. I would like to share my observation for China's macroeconomic situation for you today. According to the statistics released on this Monday by the National Bureau of Statistics, China's GDP growth rate for the third quarter was 6.9%, which is consistent with 7% for the first two quarters of this year. That highlights China has successfully maintained relatively high as well as steady growth for the first three quarters of this year. The growth rate of around 7% surely is the highest among the major economies in the world at this moment. But compared with the track record of nearly 10% growth rate for China assumed in the previous decades, the growth rate at the moment in recent years has been slowing down for China indeed. Why this happened? I think the recently released statistics give some direct explanations. Number one, the industrial activities growth rate has been slowing down to 6.2% compared with the figure of something like 15% in the early years of the booming periods. Number two, the growth rate of the fixed asset investment has been declined to 12% compared with the figure of usually over 20% in the booming periods. Number three, most importantly, the external sector conditions are not favorable. The growth rate of the foreign trade has been declined by something like 7.6% for the first three quarters this year. But we can understand, we discuss the economic performance of China at the moment in a broad context of the cyclical as well as structural transformations. On the one hand, China has achieved superb, rapid catch-up during the first quarter of this new century. But their problems and difficulties as well as elements of the imbalances also has been accumulated during the process, such as overcapacity as well as bubbles in the housing sector in selected areas in China. In order to dealing with these kind of problems, and the economic growth rate has slowing down inevitably. On the other hand, rapid growth of the factor costs in terms of the salary as well as land prices and appreciations in real terms for RMB exchange rates push forwards the process of the structural transformation. And finally, structural transformation will enhance the Chinese economic structure in future eventually. But during the transition periods and economic growth process will face and headwinds and inevitably. And in thoroughly assessing the internal as well as external environment, economic environment, the new leaders and adopted the correct policy mix to addressing these problems since the 18th Congress of the CCP a few years ago. During recent years, implementation of these policies has brought good and positive results for China's economy already in terms of the reducing the overcapacity, gradually absorbing the bubbles of the housing sector in certain areas, as well as macroeconomic structural improvements. Finally, I think you can observe that the growth rates for the western and the medium provinces and the regions in China has been growing relatively higher than the national average in recent years, which will have very positive and strategic implications for China's economy and in future. In summary, I think the current economic performance of China's economy can be reasonably, sensibly explained by the gradually slowing down of the potential growth rates by the twofolds of the cyclical and the structural transformations. The correct policy adopted by the policymakers in the recent years has produced positive results already. Adhering to this policy mix, I personally think China's economy will get rid of these downward pressures in a couple of years. And finally, China's economy can hurdle across the line of the high-income economy in the next booming periods. Thank you.